Welcome to the Sewing Report. I'm Jen and we are live from the sewing room. For the first time ever, I'm going to be revealing my actual Etsy sales numbers, my expenses, breaking down my whole Etsy shop from a business perspective, and sharing what I've learned over about 3 years and over 1,000 sales. So if that's something that interests you, stay tuned. We're in for a treat. This is going to be a fun, chill Sunday afternoon live stream. And yesterday I was packing up a few Etsy orders that happened to come in. And originally the plan was to cut out some fabric today and just sew a project. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? This is a show I've been wanting to do for some time, is talk about my Etsy numbers and maybe share a little bit of what I've learned. So I thought, you know what? Today is the day. So I have got my stats all printed out. I'm going to show you my Etsy dashboard, and I'm also going to give some insight on what it's like for me to operate an Etsy shop over the past couple of years. The good, the bad, the ugly. This is all 100% real. All of these numbers are legit, and they're actually going to surprise you. But they surprised me, and I was like, holy crap. Should I be doing this? I don't know. So I'm going to be sharing all of that with you. This is going to be an interactive experience, so you're welcome to chat if you're watching this live, leave a comment if you are watching this on the replay. And if you have any questions about running an Etsy shop or just like kind of random things about having an online business like this, you're welcome to ask. This is your time to get your questions answered. And a quick disclaimer, I just want to make this clear. I am not any sort of an Etsy expert. I'm just someone who happens to have an Etsy shop and is willing to share this information with you. This also is not any sort of legal business or financial advice. This is for informational and entertainment purposes only. So again, I would encourage you, if you are looking into an Etsy shop or doing anything like this, I would do a lot of research. And I did a couple of videos about this topic. I did one explaining, this was a couple of years ago, everything I had to do to set up my Etsy shop, from like the legal requirements, business licenses, all that sort of thing. And then I did another video, and that's linked below in the description box. Sorry, my voice is a little like Kermit the Froggy today, and I keep having like a lot of throat issues, so I apologize for that. But I did another video called like Watch Before You Start an Etsy Shop, just on things that I think people need to know before they go ahead and start an Etsy shop. So that is what this show is going to be all about. And just a quick word from this live stream's sponsor, of course, the Sewing Report Etsy shop. Guys, this channel is not monetized yet. So today's sponsor is my own Etsy shop, where you can find fabric and sewing supplies. And new for 2023, I am starting to dabble in the handmade item territory. We'll see how it goes. It's not going super well so far, but I'm certainly learning some things about this particular space. So I have mostly sold fabric and sewing supplies over the past few years, but this is the shop. Check it out. I appreciate all the orders that came in yesterday. And yeah, I've got about 1,025 sales. Also, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here on the Sewing Report Live channel. So if you could help me out, if you're enjoying this topic and you want to see more, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to Sewing Report Live. Hit the like button, guys. That would also be very much appreciated. And, leave a comment or leave a chat. Sorry, I just got a cough. I had a bit of a coughing fit right before we started, so that was quite fun. So yes, the sponsor of this live stream is my own Etsy shop, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so, okay, oh, and it looks like we have a raid. Okay, this is interesting. I am streaming on multiple platforms, and it looks like, hello. Okay, so someone named Vintage Sogal has done a Twitch raid. So I believe you've sent people over to my stream. I'm kind of not, I'm like pretty new to the whole Twitch thing. But from what I understand, when someone is doing a live stream on Twitch, they'll do a raid. So apparently what that means is they'll encourage all of their live viewers to go to another stream. Am I correct with that? So thank you very much, Vintage So Gal. I really appreciate that. I gotta learn more about the guys. I'm like an old millennial, so I'm not like super up on all of like what the kids are doing. But I very much appreciate that. Very, very cool. Welcome all the viewers from Vintage So Gal on Twitch. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is like the first time this has ever happened to me before. So that's kind of nuts. Awesome. Thank you so much for everything. I'll try to return the favor. I got to figure out more how that works. But yes, I am streaming live on Twitch today. So we've got that going on. Okay, so you probably are like wondering, okay, you guys are, all right, kids, she says to all the seniors. Yeah, I don't know. I am just not that, I'm like a little unfamiliar with all of like the Twitch community stuff. So I'm like streaming there because, you know, why not? But I'm just not, like, I don't game or anything. So I'm like really kind of unfamiliar with some of this stuff. But thank you very much. Okay, so, and today we have got multiple cameras. So if you are new here, I'm going to cover this up real quick. All right, so we've got camera 1, camera 2, which is an overhead camera. So we've got multiple camera angles. And then camera 3, this is usually the sewing machine camera, but we've got like an extreme wide shot here. So you can see like my crazy stuff in the backdrop. You can see my iron here. So a lot of, yeah, so we've got a few different viewing angles here. It's mostly going to be on camera 1 though, and then I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so the moment you've been waiting for, how much money have I actually made on Etsy? So I'm going to show you right now, and guys, you're going to be surprised. You're going to be like, okay, this chick has like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. She has over 1,000 sales on Etsy. She probably has made a lot of money, right? And the answer to that is no. So I'm going to break down my actual sales, all of my expenses, and share, you know, I kind of did some math yesterday to figure things out. And I was surprised. I was very surprised. Okay, so let's bring this up. So over the past, yeah, I'm showing you my real dashboard. Over the past 3 years or so, I have made $14,000 in revenue on Etsy. Now you're probably like, you know, Jen, that's pretty good. Also keep in mind that the sales on Etsy are not like how many orders you've had. So I've had about 534 orders. But like the thing is, people might order more than one thing. So that's why I'm at 1,000 sales, is that, you know, like most orders have been more than one item. So Etsy counts each item they order as one sale. And I've made a total about $14,473. You're probably like, wow, that's awesome, Jen. Now, that is split over about 3 years. So that's less than $5,000 a year in total gross sales. So you're probably like, you know, Jen, that's still pretty good. That's, you know, about $5,000. But here's the thing. You have to keep in mind that this is before all of my expenses, all of my costs, shipping, supplies, and taxes. So I kind of did the math. And I figured a couple things out. And I was, you know, I'll be honest, I was a little bit bummed to see the actual numbers. I was like, because at first glance you see this and you're like, you know, that's pretty good, especially since this is something I do as a secondary thing. This is, if my main income relied on this Etsy shop, this would not be a very good thing. Clearly I am not making a living off of Etsy, that's for sure. Okay, so let's talk about my actual like profit and loss. So down in the description box, I've linked a few resources that I think would be helpful for anyone that is considering starting an Etsy shop. So I would highly encourage you to check some of those out. Etsy has also put out a lot of free resources on the website from all of the legal stuff to the fee, explaining the fees, what you can and can't sell. There's actually a lot of things to know. There's intellectual property considerations and tax stuff. So Etsy has made a lot of guides for that. I would encourage you to read those if you're considering an Etsy shop. But, okay, so here's what I figured out. So I use a software called QuickBooks Simple Start. That's also linked in the description box. It's not cheap. It's $320 a year. So that is quite a chunk of change. But I personally really needed that for bookkeeping. And there's also some other benefits, like you can actually generate invoices from the software. It makes it very easy for my accountant at the end of the year to figure out taxes. And it generated reports very quickly. Okay, so my numbers over the past 3 years, okay, where's my total Etsy revenue? Okay, so my total Etsy shop sales, now this number differs a little bit from what you just saw on Etsy, and that's because it's also taking into account discounts and refunds, like if someone's canceled an order, and also it's included shipping fees that basically like the customer pays for shipping and then I buy the shipping. So that is basically a wash. So a customer may pay me $4.15 to ship an item, and then I buy a shipping label that's for the same price. So my profit and loss statement includes that as technical Etsy shop income, when really that's, not really income. So my total Etsy shop sales have been $14,715, right? Okay, so again, you're like, that's a pretty good number. My total, all right, this is gonna blow your mind. My total out-of-pocket costs for the Etsy shop in terms of my cost of goods, which is like buying all the items I'm selling, the fees, the Etsy fees, the shipping costs, shipping supplies, and all of that type of thing, like all of the inventory I keep. My total out-of-pocket costs have been $18,056. So I'm actually technically in the hole $3,341. So yeah, so I kind of figured as such. This is the first time I've ever looked at like the, kind of really examined the numbers and did an analysis of my own Etsy shop. But my total out-of-pocket cost for the Etsy shop has been over $3,300 more than the income it's brought in. So just let that sink in for a second before you're like, oh my gosh, you can make so much money from this. And I would also like to point out that the reason that it's in the negative is because I currently have a lot of inventory that I have not sold yet. So while on paper I'm in the negative, I have a lot of inventory that's considered an asset. And a lot of that is fabric. So I have a lot of the items I sell in the shop, I have to keep a certain number on hand for when it sells. I have some inventory that I've been sitting on for years. And it's just one of those things where, and because I have income from other sources, this is not my primary source of income. I've been able to cover the cost of that through other areas like my freelance work or my YouTube ad money. So I just wanted to be clear. My Etsy shop on paper looks like it's about breaking even. There's really been, again, in terms of like total dollar amounts. So yeah, my total Etsy shop sales has been just to recap, $14,715. Total out-of-pocket costs, $18,056. So that is negative $3,341. So yeah. Is it worth it? Is it not? I'm going to talk about all of this a little bit more. I'm not disappointed with my Etsy shop, progress so far. I think I'm happy to be about breaking even. I have a lot of inventory, and I'll share a little bit about what I've learned about running a shop that sells a lot of sewing supplies and fabric. Sorry, I just need some water real quick. But yeah, this surprised me, and I'm sure this probably surprises you all, because when you see my shop, you're probably like, oh my gosh, she is probably making so much money because she has 1,000 sales. And 1,000 sales seems to be like a milestone that a lot of people are trying to reach. And I think that's awesome. But you also have to look at your actual business numbers, because this looks like I should be doing great, but on paper, I've actually been in the negative if you consider all of the costs I've put into the Etsy shop. And that's not even taking into account costs like some of the office supplies I've had to buy, or what was I going to say? Office supplies, or even all the business licenses I've had to pay, taxes I've had to pay. I've had to buy online subscriptions like the Adobe, or like the QuickBooks online bookkeeping stuff, paying for a public accountant. So a lot of, so yeah, there's a lot of costs into running an Etsy shop if you're trying to do it as an actual business. And again, if you have any questions, now is your chance to ask, and I'd be happy to try to answer anything I can. But this is not, the reason I wanted to do this show is because I see so many YouTube videos with a clickbaity title like, oh my gosh, make 6 figures doing print on demand or selling on Etsy. Like, you keep seeing those videos where it's like, make $1 million a year selling on Etsy. And I think the reality is, I think most Etsy shops don't really make a profit, or it's like kind of hobby money. I also see a lot of people selling on Etsy that are, in my opinion, undercutting themselves and everyone else in the community. And I think they're not actually keeping accurate books, so they don't really know that they're probably not making any money after all of the costs and taxes considered. So you have to kind of think, it kind of feels good. You're like, well, I'm getting $500, from my Etsy payout. But if your expenses are $500, you really have not made any money, and you've also put in a lot of your time. So you have to consider the time you're putting in to the Etsy shop. Is it worth it? So yeah, and I will talk about, let's look at the year-over-year progress too, because I think this is pretty important. So you can see on my own Etsy dashboard, so I've had 21,000 visits, and also keep in mind, I'm someone who has a fairly decent social media presence. So I'm someone going into it, I wasn't really starting from zero. I had an advantage compared to a lot of other Etsy sellers because people already knew who I was. I had a way to market my products, and I brought a lot of, so you can see over time, I've brought 52% of the visits to my Etsy shop directly because because I have a YouTube channel, because I'm on Instagram, and I have a website, and I already had traffic. So you can see I brought over 11,000 visits to my Etsy shop. Etsy brought probably about 9,000. And I will say, at first, I'll kind of look at things year over year, because you'll be able to see that these numbers have changed over time. Before, when I first started out, I was bringing 80 to 90% of the traffic to my Etsy shop, and Etsy was bringing basically nothing. Over time, I feel like my Etsy shop has been promoted in search, or recommended by their algorithm. And Etsy, and it took a while to gain traction on the Etsy platform. So over time, I've gotten more Etsy traffic, but you'll see, okay, so 2020, because I think I started my shop in mostly 2021. That's when I think I kind of started selling a few things, but not much. 2021 is when I really started to get serious about the shop. 2022 was the best year. My sales year over year, I think, are a little bit less this year, but I think there's also a lot of economical factors going on, and I think people just aren't buying as much, which makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's been layoffs, so I think there's been a lot going on. So I would not be surprised if 2023 overall had lower sales than 2022. It's already looking that way. All right, so let me do some custom searches. I'll start off with let's start off with 2021 because that's really the first year that I was like kind of doing it for real. I think I started listing items in late 2020, but that's not a really good representation of when I really started doing it. All right, so let's do 2021. Let's do let's do 2021 totals. So I need to do like 1231. And we'll take like an honest look at this. Okay, so this is January through December of 2021. Okay, so I had 6,200 visits total, 161 orders, and a total revenue of $4,172. And you can see, so look, how shoppers found you. I brought 62% of the traffic, and Etsy brought 38%. So I was bringing, that's definitely way more than half. You can also see what sold the most, and how much revenue it brought me. And I'll also talk to a little bit later about because I broke down the numbers for a typical sale and how much money I got to keep after all said and done. And I think that will surprise you too. I also don't do offsite ads. I don't pay for, I've never bought Etsy ads. I accidentally had offsite ads on for a while and they take a lot of money, so I turned them off. I think if you get over $10,000 in sales a year, you're required to opt in, but I'm not over that threshold. So right now I don't have to worry about that, but I think they take 15%. So they take a lot of they take a lot of your sales. Okay, so that is 2021. And you can see, weirdly, my best month was May with 765 visits. And then December was pretty good too, 690. January was, so you can kind of see a pattern of when it's, when it's it kind of ebbs and flows. So you can kind of see that. And again, if you have any questions, drop it in the chat and I'd be happy to try to answer it because I think it's important. I really wanted people to be aware of what you're getting into because as you know, whenever you're making stuff, the first thing someone tells you is, oh my gosh, those are so cute. You should sell them on Etsy. Or have you considered opening an Etsy shop to sell the stuff you make? And this is the reality of it. The other thing I want to point out is that for the most part, I have sold products because I sell craft supplies and sewing supplies, which is allowed on Etsy. I'm not physically making these items. And the more labor you have to put into making an item, that's something you have to keep in mind on paying yourself some type of hourly wage to make that item. And I've kind of learned the hard way since I've been making and selling little items just as an experiment, that the longer it takes you to make each item, the less that really cuts into your hourly wage for yourself if it's taking you forever to make something. I've also tried dabbling in things like fat quarter bundles, and I've personally found that it makes a lot more sense to sell factory cut pre-cuts, factory cut fabric bundles, than myself having to cut bundles. So I think I'm going to get away from that. And I will say the fabric has not been a big seller. So I'm actually planning to get away selling fabric just because it takes up a lot. So a couple things. It takes up a ton of space in my house because the bolts are so big. There's labor in cutting out all of the fabric. And I'm only doing like pre-cuts, like half-yard bundles, fat quarter bundles, that type of thing. So I think doing fabric by the yard or cutting fabric yourself to sell is a pretty tricky thing in terms of labor and like your margins in terms of the profit. So they just haven't sold as well as the supplies. So I now have a ton. So a lot of my inventory, my $3,300 that I still have sitting in my house, it's a lot of it is fabric. So I got to figure that. And that's another reason why I decided to try making and selling handmade items, is that I can at least try to use up some of my fabric inventory and kind of sell the fabric in another way. Plus I like making things, and I've kind of run out of people to give them to. So I thought that that might be a good way for me to, be able to make things, for the channel and for like live streams and stuff, but also, have another like purpose for them. Okay, so let's take a look again at my Etsy dashboard. So let's take a look at 2022. So we'll take a look at 2022 and 2023. Okay, so 2022, I had significantly more sales. So I had about 10,000 visits, 261 orders, and a little under $7,000 in revenue. And if you notice, my conversion rate has largely stayed about the same, about 2.6%. Compared to 2021, I had 61% more visits. And you can see, like, May of 2021 was better than, actually, compared to the rest of the year, it had about the same sales as the previous year, but I got more sales in other months. Weirdly, November was the best month overall with 1,201 visits. December wasn't as good. So it looks like a lot of people did their holiday shopping in November for things like that. The other thing is, I think I'm getting away from selling. At first, I started out selling made to sew kits. So I was cutting pieces for a project and selling little kits. And I'll be honest with you, those did not sell very well. So that's the thing. If something doesn't work for you, you should probably like stop doing it and try something else, or pivot and lean more into what actually is selling than what's not selling. And you can see, now look at the big difference here. This year drastically changed how shoppers found you. Okay, and let me compare this. Wait, is this on? I'm not sure. Okay, so this is good because you can see the previous sales. So this is kind of interesting. We'll leave this on. So look, I had a lot more sales in 2022. But yeah, you can see this is the first year where Etsy brought more traffic to my Etsy shop than me. Because the previous year, it was flip-flopped. It was like 60%, 62% me, and then 38% Etsy. In 2022, it was 57% Etsy, and then 43% me. So I thought that was pretty interesting that it took about 2 years for my shop to kind of gain traction with the Etsy algorithm. So that's something that maybe you can take away is, I think people get on Etsy and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been selling on Etsy for a month and I'm not seeing much happen. You can clearly see with my own shop the trajectory over a few years that it took like 2 years for me to really gain traction on Etsy. I'll also show you, so the most popular item is the Sew Tights magnets, which has been far and away the most popular thing. Seriflex thread. The holiday sewing kit did pretty okay but like, yeah, notice it got a lot of views, but not a lot of orders. It only got 5 orders. So you can see that's kind of a bust. Also, like, you have to keep in mind, this has a lot of orders, but this is a lower priced item, the thread. So you can kind of see what the most popular items are. So yeah, this is kind of surprising. Now let's look at this year so far, and I'll compare it to the previous year. And you can see my sales are a bit lower. So like, look, like April is about the same as last year, but So currently I have 4,150 visits, 85 orders, a slightly lower conversion rate at 2%, and about $2,600 in like total revenue. Now, right now, it's about 50-50. So it's Etsy's bringing 50% of the visits, and I'm bringing 50% of the visits. It's down in Etsy search, down in Etsy marketing and SEO. So kind of interesting. Sew Tight's still a very popular item. And by the way, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but for the first time in years, I have started doing a sponsorship with Sew Tights, and I think it's going to be a really good thing. And I'll talk about that a little bit later because I've had trouble finding sponsors that are aligned values-wise, and I think Sew Tights has been a pretty good fit. So if this surprises you, yeah, I was surprised too. But I was really surprised by my numbers and the fact that I'm technically in the hole about $3,300 for the Etsy shop. So that's interesting. But yeah, you can see, actually, yeah, January I had quite a few visits this year. Oh wait, is this compare? Maybe I am doing better. Oh wait, I am doing better than last year, technically. So we'll see how the rest of the year shakes out. Okay, sorry, for some reason I thought this was 2023, but technically I am doing better than last year, which is kind of crazy, but I would not be surprised if my sales for 2023 were lower just because of the economy and some other factors. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I honestly don't know. Okay, let's read some of the comments. Sorry, my throat is like, I had a coughing fit right before I started, so that was kind of fun. All right, Lisa's here. Welcome, Lisa. In general, it's tough to make money sewing. My sister and I closed our shop when the fees went up and $600 tax reporting kicked in. We barely eked out hobby money. Exactly, and I'll talk about taxes in a little bit because I think that's something that anyone starting an Etsy shop should have some basic level knowledge of, because I see a lot of people who start an Etsy shop and then they go to like the Etsy subreddits on Reddit, and they're panicked because they've gotten themselves into a bad situation because they just were not aware of a lot of stuff. So I will talk about that a little bit later. All right, we've got Tissa Girl. See, that part to me isn't wanting to buy from Etsy because a lot of things aren't actually handmade. That is a very big issue with Etsy in that they seem to not be enforcing a lot of the clearly mass-produced items that are making their way to Etsy. And I do think that is hurting and diluting the Etsy brand and making customers reluctant to shop there because they don't want to pay handmade prices for something that is clearly mass produced. And I think there's a lot of issues with that, and that's become a pretty big problem. All right, we've got Tara in the house. Hello, Tara. Hey, Jen, I've been listening while crafting. I started on Etsy in 2018, and I luckily got sales pretty quickly. However, since Etsy forced free shipping and since the pandemic, it's been rough. Yeah, a lot of shops have had some issues lately, and I think that's been an issue with a lot of people with online businesses. I've also been seeing this in the YouTube space where a lot of YouTube creators have had a lot of like a drop in revenue and a drop in views over the past few months, and everyone's kind of freaking out. So I don't necessarily think that's just an Etsy issue. I think it's a wider issue with people who make money online. All right, yep, the fact that Etsy is becoming the somewhat new Amazon is sad because a lot of things aren't actually handmade. Well, and that's the thing. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do Sewing Report Live, is so people could actually see me making things for the Etsy shop, and this is handmade because I've made this on a live stream. So that's been one of the purposes. Okay, sorry, my microphone wire is like kind of growing there. That looks a little weird. But that's one of the things I wanted to do, is to show myself and show the actual handmade making process so that people know, like, oh, that's all that goes into making like a zipper pouch or making scarves. All right, Tara, I 100% agree that people are not factoring their materials, shipping supplies, boxes, business cards, tissue paper, etc., are undercutting themselves and hurting others with accurate pricing. Exactly. I see a lot of people say things like, oh, you know what? I'm not really trying to make money. I'm just trying to like recoup some of my costs and, have a little extra hobby money. And here's the thing. Now that the IRS, and this is a United States based show, just in case you're wondering, the fact that the IRS now has a very low threshold for reporting for these online platforms like Etsy, that's kind of forcing small sellers to do books. And I think a lot of people, when they actually look at their real numbers, they're shocked that they are in the negative or that they really aren't making any money, and they thought they were. So I do think that this IRS threshold will, I think, dissuade quite a few sellers, handmade sellers here, because they're like, oh, now that I've done the math, I'm only making $200 a year. I mean, you could make more money just getting a part-time job somewhere if you just want straight up money. If this is something you enjoy and like you're retired or something, that's one thing. But if you're actually trying to make money with Etsy, I agree. I think a lot of people are just not really factoring in all of the costs to running an Etsy business. And then they're quickly realizing it's not really worth it. I mean, the only reason I'm able to do this is because I have income from other sources. But as I just mentioned, currently I am negative $3,300 for my overall Etsy shop over 3 years. Supplies, unless you have a wholesale license, make it tough to make any money. Tara, you right, the push for free shipping hurt too. Yeah, and I do the free shipping over $35, and that definitely cuts into my margins for sure. All right, collectibles and handmade items was the draw in the beginning. Yes, certainly. And I also want to point this out. A lot of people too are having issues with getting shops terminated or listings removed for IP violations or intellectual property. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on, because I think that's an area that people really don't have a good understanding of. So I think that's an important issue. Okay, so I want to kind of go over just some, and also, like, I want to show you too. I've got I'm not showing people's addresses, but I've got on my table a bunch of Etsy orders I have to ship out tomorrow. So thank you for all the orders. But yeah, it is a lot of work. I have to spend, and I try to be very quick with the shipping. So when orders come in, I try to get them out right away. So I pack all of these orders myself. I'm doing like literally, like I don't have anybody like helping me with this. So, if I get 5 orders I got like 5 orders yesterday, and I was like, all right, let's just take care of this now. So I package everything up. So I personally get my like stickers and stuff like that from a website called moo.com. So I'll kind of, if you have any questions about like, vendors, I also buy my bubble mailers currently from Amazon. They have pretty good pricing. So I've linked some of the stuff I use below. After I made a certain amount of sales, I didn't do this right away. At first, I was just printing out the shipping labels on regular paper and like using clear packing tape to tape them to packages. But once I got to a certain level of sales, I invested in a thermal label printer. This has saved me a ton of time. And you never have to buy ink for it. So this is about $200. This is by a company called Rollo. There's a bunch of other brands too. And the labels are fairly cheap. And at least I don't have to like cut things out and like, so it saves me a lot of time. But I didn't buy this right away. I waited until I had made like $1,000 in sales, or like I'd made a significant amount of sales. And then I was like, one day I got a bunch of orders in a day and I was like, yeah, I'm going to order this printer now. But this was a fairly significant expense. They do have a wireless version, but that one is significantly more expensive. It's $300. So I have not upgraded because I just think that's a lot of money. And this one, you know, I got plugged in and then I have it plugged into my computer. So it's really a pretty, you know, nifty little gadget here. And I didn't really think that the wireless upgrade would be worth an extra $100. Plus I've already sunk money into this one. So for now I'm keeping this one and using it. So that's also linked down below in the description box. All right, Tara, I shut my shop down for more than 6 months. I am shifting what I offer and changing up what I sell moving forward. Hey, you know what? Sometimes you have to pivot with your strategy, especially if it seems like there's also a lot of trends on Etsy. So something that may have been popular in 2021 may not be popular now. Okay, we've got Sarah. I noticed lots of peeps UK here sell their items for dirt cheap. It's not worth turning on your machine for that. I wanted to try an Etsy shop, but sad face. Yeah, exactly. And that can be a little disheartening when you're trying to sell something you made for a real price, and then you see a bunch of other people selling theirs for nothing. And people are price sensitive, and that that really does devalue what makers are worth. I think that's a bad thing. I don't recommend or encourage anyone to price themselves to the point where they're not making an actual living wage. So, all right, we've got Denise. Missed the first 30 minutes. I always appreciate these behind the scenes episodes. I learned so much about the process, future plans for your shop. Well, Denise, I'm going to be phasing out mostly selling fabric just because it takes up a lot of room and it just doesn't sell as well. So I think I'm going to be sticking to more like the supplies, like scissors, pins, like the magic pins, that kind of thing. But I would like to experiment more with handmade items. So I'm going to be doing that, and I have some interesting ideas for marketing these items. I'm going to keep that under my hat for now. But I have Christmas fabric from like 2 years ago. I still have a ton of it. So if you do like cute Christmas fabric, I still have a lot of that available. But I think I'm probably going to need to mark that down just to kind of get it out the door. I have a lot of it. And I also bought a bunch of kind of basic fabrics to sell in bundles, and those haven't really sold super well either, but I did at least get that fabric for a pretty good deal. So I think I'm going to be doing that as well. But the fabric, just hasn't sold well. Okay, this is a good question, Sarah, and I'll talk about this. Hey, could you sell fabric mystery boxes? And my answer is no, and I would not recommend it for people, and here is why. One, I think Etsy has some specific rules for mystery boxes. You'll have to check, but there's a lot of things that they don't allow. They don't allow you to sell gift baskets made comprised of mass manufactured items. So you couldn't do a bridesmaid's gift box and put a coffee mug you bought in it or whatever. The things in the box have to be made by you. The other thing I will say about mystery boxes is I think it really opens you up to unsatisfied customers. I think there are some, now don't get me wrong, there are some scammy shops out there, but there are also some difficult customers out there as well. And I think anytime you're selling anything where someone would get random things or where they're not specifically choosing what they're getting, I think your likelihood of bad reviews or people wanting to try to return the item or get a refund are significantly higher. So that is not something I'm going to be doing for those purposes. Again, you do you if you want to do that, but you'll have to check Etsy's rules because I think there are some rules about mystery boxes, and that's not personally something I plan to be doing. Now, I did at one point sell a sewing kit where It was a drawstring bag kit. I cut the fabric myself. So basically when someone got the kit, all they had to do was start sewing. All the fabric was cut out. But here was my mistake. I used a fat quarter bundle. It was very cute to make the kits. And it was a random assortment. So people would get like people couldn't choose the fabric they got. They would get like kind of a random print from within that collection. And I did get one customer that was like pretty unhappy about it. And for those reasons, I would not do that again. If I sold, kits or whatever, I would have them get exactly what was pictured. So I personally, I do not want to do mystery boxes or really get into that. I just think that the risk is too high for customers being upset with what they got. That's just my opinion. You can agree or disagree. All right, Tissa Girl says, I think I'm going to do to sell now in person. I feel like I get more money buying in person and people can actually feel the product or whatnot. Yeah, I think if you want to do craft fairs or maker fairs, I think that's cool. All right. Tara says, Jen, Lisa, everyone watching, I bought some beautiful fabric from Joanne today. Oh, I just got some water on my papers. To make my own purse scarf. Yes, awesome, Tara. I wish I could show you the fabric. Thank you, Jen, for inspiring me and others. Awesome. Okay. And Tissa Girl says, with my shop, I'm also strictly made to order because actually handmade. That is amazing. All right, Lisa. All right, you're going to go to Joann's. Hey, that sounds awesome to me. All right. Tara says, I love mystery boxes of any kind. I like the idea what fabric store is popular in the UK. Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing. Some people may like mystery boxes. I personally don't. I don't personally buy. I don't like surprises. I kind of stopped doing anything subscription-based where I didn't know what I was getting. Just because I kind of felt like with those, I was getting a lot of stuff that I wouldn't use. Some people are into that. Some people are not. But I will say there are starting to be some kind of problem customers on Etsy, and I do think that you run the risk of someone being very unhappy with what they got in the mystery box. So that's why I personally am just going to kind of get away from that whole concept personally. But again, that doesn't mean there aren't people out there who would like them, and that doesn't mean you necessarily should or shouldn't do them. I want to be clear. Your mileage may vary with any of this, and this is just my own opinion. So that's just not, it's just not, I just ran into that personally where I got I've only gotten maybe 2 negative reviews, and the people clearly were just not happy people in general. The other thing I would like to say is that the customer that was very upset with her kind of mystery box type item I was selling was that the sewing kit with the fabric selection that you didn't know what you were going to get. I had deeply discounted the last few of the kits. So I think this person got 30 or 35% off. It was something, so they got a really good deal on it, and they still complained about the item because they didn't like the fabric. So I'm moving forward not going to be doing any products where what's exactly pictured is not what they're going to get. That's just my own opinion. So, all right. But let's talk also about some of the Etsy business stuff. I touched on this in some of the videos I've done about Etsy. And here's my take on starting an Etsy shop. I think if you are someone who doesn't know about basic business principles and you don't understand taxes or kind of the regulatory laws where you live, I'm going to be real with you. I don't think you should be starting an Etsy shop. I cannot tell you how much I've seen people go to Etsy subreddits like r/Etsy sellers, and they started an Etsy shop. They clearly didn't know anything about laws or about business practices. And then they come to these subreddits panicking because they've gotten themselves into a very bad situation. Typically with tax, and it's typically with taxes or with intellectual property violations. So I'll talk about this briefly. and when I spoke about this in a previous video, I talked about Etsy collecting and remitting sales tax. Most states have a sales tax. So when you purchase something, you have to pay like 6% or 7.5% on anything that you're buying that's being shipped to a certain state. Now, for a long time, online sales generally weren't taxed because state laws hadn't yet caught up to the internet. So for a long time, we as consumers got to enjoy buying stuff on Amazon or buying stuff on websites or online portals, and we didn't have to pay sales tax. Now, this is, again, for US-based customers. These states wanted the money. They felt like they were being cut off by people buying online. So most states at this point now have internet sales laws in terms of sales tax. So even if I'm buying, so most of my customers have to pay their state sales tax. That's just how it is. And a lot of states are now forcing online platforms such as Etsy to be responsible for collecting sales tax from customers and then paying them out to those respective states. So that's something that in my state, I live in Florida, for a while, the first year I had my Etsy shop, the sales tax was paid to me, and then I actually had to pay it to my state. But then Etsy started doing it automatically, so now I don't have to worry about that. But a lot of people, I think, are getting confused sales tax and income tax. So I've seen a lot of people in Etsy subreddits say, especially when the IRS put out those new guidelines requiring online platforms to report any sales over $600. Previously, the threshold was $20,000, which was quite high. Currently, for 2023, if you gross over $600 on any online platform, those platforms are required to send the IRS a notice that you had that type of business activity. So now the IRS directly knows how much money you're taking in from those platforms, and basically it's going to be harder to fly under the radar with not reporting that income on your taxes. So if you don't report the income on your taxes, they're going to know, and they're going to come after you for that money. So I know a lot of sellers were pretty unhappy about this. Believe me, I get it. $600 is a pretty low amount of money, especially if you're doing like a hobby shop or anything like that. But what I saw from a lot of, I think, very inexperienced or very kind of green Etsy sellers is that I saw a lot of comments like, oh, I thought Etsy already collected those taxes for us. Not realizing that there's a difference between sales tax and income tax. So if you are operating an Etsy shop and you're operating within the United States, it's on you to make sure that you are saving up enough of that money that you're getting from Etsy to be able to pay income taxes. So if you make and again, you'll have to talk to a tax pro or look at tax pro resources, but depending on your situation, you may need to pay estimated quarterly income taxes directly to the IRS, especially if you make over a certain dollar amount. And a lot of people just weren't doing that. They just didn't know, or they just didn't care. And then they panicked when the IRS audited them, or they got those, they're called 1099K forms. It's like an independent contractor type designation by the Internal Revenue Service. And you're going to be issued those from all of these online payment platforms if you're doing over $600 in transactions a year, period. So a lot of people just didn't seem to understand this. I did talk to a couple people on the Sewing Report. Those are, if you kind of look at the main channel page for Sewing Report Live, I have a playlist called Selling on Etsy, and I talked to a CPA and I talked to an Etsy bookkeeper. So those would be very helpful for you if you literally don't know anything about taxes or bookkeeping. But I saw a lot of people I've been seeing a lot of people who have started an Etsy shop and know nothing about taxes. I wouldn't want to be in that situation. I'm just being real with you. Now, I'm not trying to like gatekeep Etsy or tell you you shouldn't have an Etsy shop, but if you don't have a clue about basic business laws, tax laws, I feel like you're putting yourself into a very bad situation potentially by starting a business if you know nothing about business. Now, you might think that's mean or whatever. I don't care. But that's what I'm saying as someone who is a small business owner and who's had to do a lot of research myself to learn about operating a business. I'm not trying to make it overly complicated or trying to make it sound harder than it is, but it's not, it's not ridiculously simple. And I did get a couple comments like on my, like, you're making this way overcomplicated. I'm like, am I? Because I haven't had any issues with the IRS. I have not had any intellectual property issues. And my CPA told me my books were perfect. So I don't feel like a fool for being overprepared. I'm just gonna say that. All right. Let's take a look at a few more comments. All right, we've got Denise. I like the idea of a mystery subscription, but yes, I don't usually use any of the items. I'd rather set aside money and buy a specific item, but would purchase kits for a project and or sewing along. All right, Tissa Girl. I haven't sold anything within 2 years, and I made the commitment that my shop will be one listing until I at least get a sale. If I get a decent amount of sales, I'll increase my listings to more in my shop. All right, Denise, it sounds like Etsy is not simply an online craft fair. No, it's not. And that's the thing, because it's all digital, there's a footprint of all of your sales. So it's a little bit harder to like evade the IRS if you're selling on a platform with all of these electronic records versus if you're selling things to family and friends with cash. I'm just going to put that out there. So, Tissa Girl, is that a good route? So Tissa, I'm not like an Etsy expert. I have heard that the more listings you have, the better. I can't confirm that. I will say, though, that my shop started to gain traction when I had about a year and a half in, and I did have a lot of listings. So I don't know if that made a difference. I have heard Etsy people say that, so I don't know. All right. Tara says, Jen, my main item on Etsy was my twist on a diaper cape, which includes diapers and baby items that I didn't manufacture. However, Etsy allows these. Yes, they do. And I think that's specifically brought up on the Etsy site. My time for the big baskets takes hours to create. Yeah, that's really cool. But yeah, I think the reason is because you're actually taking those items and you're like making something out of them. So the thing that Etsy doesn't allow is like a gift basket where you just put a bunch of stuff you bought in it. So Etsy does not allow that. But I think the difference with the diaper cakes is that you're kind of, it's like a piece of art, but you're using the diapers as like your medium, like for real. So I think that's why those are fine. Denise, I think you're spot on in your assessment, especially since you have direct Etsy shop experience. I think there will be a lot of people getting big surprises. Yeah, I agree with that. Does Etsy do a push for big top shops? I think in a way the algorithm probably does if you have a lot of sales, a lot of reviews, and you have popular items. So I think it's kind of like, why do all the top YouTube channels get the most views? Because they have a lot of views, They've got a history, they got a lot of subscribers, and clearly they've been putting out videos that people want to watch. The other thing I will touch on somewhat briefly is the intellectual property stuff. The other thing I see all the time on r/Etsy sellers is people who clearly don't have any concept of intellectual property or like copyright stuff, trademark laws. I will say this. I've seen a lot of shops in violation of intellectual property laws, and I think that's a very, very risky thing to do. Anything that's based on someone else's property, we're talking the Disney stuff, Star Wars stuff, you doing things based on like designer brands, like if you're trying to make Chanel t-shirts or something, those brands are hardcore about cracking down on their own intellectual property. And I see a lot of shops complaining about it. Look, it is what it is. The laws are the laws. And whether you're a small company or a mega corporation, the law protects everyone the same. So just think about that. If you're trying to sell anything that is based on something else you didn't create, a book, a movie, a celebrity, a brand, a logo, you are probably in the wrong for the intellectual property stuff. And that's something I also see a lot of people who, again, they're selling like Disney mouse ears or something, and then their shop gets shut down and they come to Etsy and they complain about it, or they make a video and complain about it. Look, guys, I'm sorry. I feel like that's something, if you didn't have enough knowledge of that to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and say it. You should not have been operating a business based on that if you don't have a basic understanding of those laws. And quite frankly, the best thing that can happen to you is that your shop is only shut down. Worst case scenario, you get sued and you have to shell out tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars for an attorney. Don't put yourself in that situation. The other thing, I know there's been a lot of talk about whether you can sell things you made with licensed fabric. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not a lawyer. But I do personally think that's a pretty risky thing to do. And even if you're technically in the right legally, you're going to have to spend money on lawyers to defend yourself. So that's why I personally would not sell anything based on somebody else's intellectual property. So yeah, if you're here and you're like, I'm thinking about starting an Etsy shop, I would start researching business laws for your area, wherever you live. What do I need to do legally to start a business? I would look up tax code for wherever you live. What do I have to do about taxes? And have a basic understanding about trademark, copyright, intellectual property law, because again, I've seen so many shops selling stuff that's illegal or that's very dicey legally, and these people clearly have no idea what they're doing. So I think those are some of the biggest mistakes I've seen with Etsy shops in general. Okay. All right, we got Lisa. Jen, you are not overstating the tax reporting requirements and running a business. You need to keep your books in order and pay the piper before you pay yourself. Ran a business for 25 years, yeah. And here's the other thing. Please don't take this the wrong way. Not everyone is cut out for running their own business. And if you're not, that's totally okay. A lot of people are employees at a company or work for someone else. And I think that's very honorable. And I don't think anyone's better than anyone else because they are an employee or a business owner. But if you've noticed, most businesses fail. That's just the way things are. And clearly a lot of people are getting into business that might not be a good fit for being self-employed or running their own business. Also, a lot of times it takes you a few failures to get to something that's successful. I think there's been quite a few stories about, the guy who founded like the Hershey company. He had a bunch of failed businesses before he had a successful one. So if you are getting into doing your own business, you have to have a really thick skin. You have to be okay with failure. Like you're going to fail. Like there's going to be a number of failures. And if you can't accept that, that might not be for you. And the other thing is that like you kind of have to know, like, again, I think if you're doing it as a hobby, that might be a good, safer option because you have a steady paycheck, but you can also afford to take a few risks and try it out without like risking being able to feed yourself or pay your mortgage or whatever. So there's a lot to think about, but I just think I really hate this whole like kind of vibe that's going on online that's like on TikTok or in real life, where people are like, oh yeah, just start your own Etsy shop, it's easy. Or all the videos I see floating around online telling people how easy it is to make money through Etsy, which I don't think it is. And if I had to look at all of the Etsy shops in the world, I'm going to guess most of them don't make enough to live on. Kind of like, I think it's a very small percentage of shops that are making most of the money, and a lot of people down at the bottom that aren't really making any money. That's my own opinion. All right, we got Sarah. I am behind in the video. I didn't think about unhappy customers. I was just thinking of a way for you to sell your fabric quick. Sarah, yeah, I just think that's too risky. And yeah, the customer I had write the nasty review about getting she didn't know exactly what she was getting. Again, bad reviews can actually hurt your shop. And again, I just personally don't want to deal with customers that are unhappy. So I'm going to be getting away from anything where they're not getting exactly what's pictured. That's pretty much all I'm going to sell. All right. Thanks, Tara. Lol, Jen, I love your brutal honesty. I started a construction company with my ex-husband back in 2004, so I learned a lot. My current husband is also a contractor. Taxes and profit are huge. You really like those construction guys, huh, Tara? I just got to say. I will say I'm married to a plumber, so I totally get the appeal. You've also lived through the housing crash, and I know things were pretty tough for a lot of folks, so that must have been kind of an interesting experience for you. Knowledge about taxes and profit are the most important factors in my opinion, and seems to not be what others focus on. Your perspective is needed. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, you're just laughing. Hey, that's totally cool. Now let me get some water real quick. I got some more stuff to say, guys. I got more stuff to say. Okay. So, 2009 was horrible. Yeah, that's the year, Tara, that's the year my husband and I bought a house in Florida for $47,000. Things were pretty rough around that time. I also have some relatives who are home builders, and I know they had a very, very rough few years because nobody was buying anything. Okay, so I want to talk about, so you guys already know, overall, my Etsy shop is in the negative. I am negative $3,300. But I want to break down and talk to you about what, I did the math on this, on how much, on how much money I actually get to keep from each sale. So I went through and I looked at one of these sales. The sale was about $40. And okay, so $40, right? And I believe they got free shipping because it was over a $35 order. I did all of the calculations, and do you want to know how much percentage-wise, and I want to have you guys guess, what percentage of that money do you think I got to keep after expenses and taxes? And that's not including like my hard costs, like my equipment and stuff, like my computer or like my label maker and stuff like that, or my licenses. That's just like Etsy fees, transaction fees, cost of goods, shipping supplies, and and again, I got like stuff like my stickers, my business cards. I want you guys to guess. And my income taxes, I usually calculate about 25% that I need to set aside for taxes. I want y'all in the chat to guess, out of that $40, what percentage of the money do you think I keep after expenses and taxes? Take a guess. All right. All right, we've got 10%, 15%, 35%. Do you want to know what it is? It's about 20%. All right, so so $40. All right. And also that's not including like all of the like I'm sitting on a lot of inventory that I've already paid for, about the $3,300, probably something like that. So, all right, so if I make an order for $40, and I also included like the shipping costs and stuff, I'm keeping $8. So I just want you to keep in mind when you're like, oh, she sold $100. So if I make a $100 sale, I'm keeping on average $20 of that after taxes. So again, what seems like a really cool, like you're like, wow, that's so much money. When you factor in the cost of everything, it's really not that much money. It really isn't. You know, you got to pay taxes. You got to pay for all this stuff. You know, I got to pay for all my shipping supplies. I have to pay for all of my licenses. And, you know, it's kind of a hassle too, because every year I have to get a reseller's license so that I can buy supplies wholesale, all of that stuff. So, and I think it would be even worse if I was, I think once I do more sales of the handmade items, I'm going to also kind of look at, you know, all of that. And I'm also keeping track of how long it takes me to make stuff. Like on average, like if this takes me 2 hours on average to make, you know, how much am I making per hour and is it worthwhile? Oh, excuse me. So yeah, so for about $100, so for a $40 order, after expenses and taxes, I'm keeping about $8 or 20%. That's not that much. And typically with supplies, like here, I'll show you. Let me get, okay, so for these pins, these are about 11, I think these are like $11.50. Typically with sewing supplies and fabric, your wholesale price is 50% of the retail price. So if these are $12, I pay $6 for the item. So that's like called cost of goods. So my cost of goods is half the retail price. And then out of my 50%, you know, take, I have to deduct all of the other expenses, shipping supplies, the shipping cost, you know, all of my other stuff and taxes. So that 50% quickly, so basically out of the half, you know, gross profit, I'm keeping like less than half of that. So yeah, so it ends up being, so if I sell this for $12, I'm keeping like $2.50. So, you know, and then also there's my time and having to like, you know, do all the bookkeeping. Like I spend a lot of time doing like monthly bookkeeping stuff, keeping everything up to date. Actually having to physically package the item, create the labels, weigh things. Oh yeah, and I also have a postage scale. Oh, and for shipping, I definitely recommend Pirate Ship. It's free and it's great. And it connects with Etsy, so it syncs up with Etsy, so you can actually access all of your Etsy orders on Pirate Ship. So that's a great free shipping service. All right, Debbie, is there potential to make more? You know, Debbie, I think volume. I would have to do a lot. And when I talked to my accountant, my certified public accountant, he basically said with these types of businesses, you have to do way more volume to make it like profitable. So that's really the answer, is just like selling, like having a much higher volume of sales. Because like that's the thing. No one's going to pay $25 for this. Like the going price, and I also have to keep in mind what other people are selling things for. Other retailers are not, you know, if I'm selling this for twice as much as other retailers, no one's going to buy it. And like I have to come to grips with that. Same thing with handmade items. Unless you're like a huge name, like if you're Chanel, of course they can sell bags for $10,000. But me being me, I'm probably not going to sell very many bags at $10,000. So you kind of have to be realistic with yourself about that stuff. And I think when you're selling handmade stuff, I think I've come to realize, I think there's a pretty big factor in figuring out a sweet price point and also something that doesn't take forever to make. And I kind of learned that the hard way. Like these purse scarves I'm selling that are new in the Etsy shop, I feel like I'm selling these for $19. They take about a half an hour to make, which isn't crazy. And it's a price that's like fairly affordable. But if this took me 10 hours to make, this would not be a profitable item. So you really have to take into account how long is it taking you to make each item, and how much are you making per hour when you know, in profit when you're selling it. So you really have to like think about those things and actually calculate your numbers. Don't just think you're making a profit. Actually look to see if you really are making enough money to make it worthwhile. All right, I loved that in another video you said you put on your store how long it took you to make. Exactly. None of the makers have any clue. Yeah, and because when I sold those pouch sets, I actually said in the listing, each set takes me 5 hours to make. And I think in the customer's mind, that might help them to get a perspective on like how much time things make, and help you to kind of realize, hey, you know what, $45 really isn't that bad for that, or whatever else you're selling it for. Tara says, that's why your $19 for your purse scarves is not too much. I truly think once you have more of a variety, you will sell them. Yeah, and that's part of my plan. I need to make them in a bunch of different colorways, and I've been a little bit like bad with that because I had to do a lot of editing this week. So my plan today was to make more of these in a different color, but that's the thing. But I have to kind of be flexible because I ended up getting a bunch of unexpected Etsy orders, so I had to do that. So it's you kind of have to have a good, you know, you kind of have to be able to pivot and do kind of switch to other activities, or like, you know, again, it's great I got these orders. If I didn't get orders, I'd be editing or I would be making something for the Etsy shop. So you kind of have to really manage your time well. Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for watching. And by the way, thank you to all those Twitch viewers who came over from that raid. That's really awesome. And if anyone has any questions about business or Etsy stuff, now is your time. I get a lot of people like trying to DM me and stuff. But that's the thing. Like, this is what these live streams are for, is for you to ask questions. So, sorry, I got like something itching in my eye. And I also do want to talk about, like, I know I've been very vocal about my feelings about like sponsorships and like influencer marketing. And I want to talk a little bit about my decision to partner with So Tights. I've had a very difficult time trying to work with sponsors. They're usually like very unreasonable. They want to pay you nothing. They want like an unreasonable level of control over your content. They want you to sign an exclusivity clause, a non-disparagement clause, so you can't say anything negative about them ever. And those were not situations I was comfortable with. I actually approached So Tights. I felt like they would be a perfect partner for me. I already liked their products. I use the products. I sell the products. I've been following them and I've interacted with So Tights on social media. I felt like they were good people, and I felt like we had a lot of the same values in common. So Tights and I worked out a very mutually beneficial agreement, and they were totally on board with the ad read not being part of the content. So the only sponsorships I'm currently considering are ones where viewers wouldn't be confused about like the actual video content and what was my opinion and what I was being paid to talk about. So I said to them, I'd like to do podcast style ad reads for you where the ad is not part of the content. I don't do like integrated videos or anything like that. And they totally got it. So I was like, this is awesome. So I'm really excited about partnering up with them. We're going to be doing more in the future. And it's perfect because I already sell the product. I like it. I've used it in many videos. You guys know this is actually a product I like, and I'm not just advertising it because they're paying me. But I wanted to choose a company that I already supported without getting paid. So that's why I decided to approach So Tights for a sponsorship. They were very excited. They've been really, really lovely to deal with. This is a very small business owned by two sisters, and I just thought it would be a really natural fit. So I'm really excited about it because, again, you can't just rely on like YouTube AdSense. And I also need to get better with the business stuff in terms of myself as a content creator. And I feel like this is a good step in the right direction. And also, by the way, they were totally on board. They have no control over the content. They don't, like, they didn't even really, like, they didn't even ask to see the video beforehand. I would not do a situation where the sponsor would get like approval of the video. Like, I don't do any of that. So they were totally cool with it. So basically I can still be me. I can say whatever I want. I can do whatever types of videos I want. I will just be incorporating so tight sponsorships in terms of there being a fairly short ad read within like the first part of videos. But yeah, like that's the thing. I already like the products. I'll also be stocking more So Tights products in the shop and trying out more of their stuff. They have some really exciting things they're working on too. And I just thought this would be a really great company to do a partnership if I'm going to do them. So I wanted to kind of share that with you because it is, you know I haven't done a sponsorship in years, and I've done very, very few. But I personally, as a viewer, enjoy the ad reads because at least as a viewer, I can see the separation between the ad and the content, and I don't have to wonder about the authenticity of the content itself. So that's my own opinion on sponsorships, and I'm open to other ones, but it would have to be companies that I know, I trust, that have a good reputation within the sewing community. I would definitely not do any sort of deals with like those random companies that come out of nowhere that sell on Amazon and that haven't been involved in the community. So I wanted to kind of share that with you. I'm really excited about it, and I think they seem like a very good partner for me. Okay, we've got a question. Sarah J, how many items do you think would be a good number to open an Etsy store? I'm not sure, but I will say for me personally, I had at least, let me look at to see how many listings I have. I noticed my store started gaining traction when I had, let's see, I have 61 active listings. I will say I noticed my shop starting to gain traction when I had like 30 to 50. I know that's tough, and you'll see different opinions on how many you need to have. But I do think it helps to have a good variety of items, great photography. I think good titles. Go to r/Etsy sellers. I will warn you, people can be very negative there, so I would kind of more lurk. But you can get some decent tidbits from other sellers. I just personally would avoid commenting or posting because people can be just really mean over there. All right, we've got Krabby Dragon. I'm a little late to the chat, so I'm sorry if I missed a previous response. If having an Etsy shop is so work intensive with so little profit, why do it? Honest question. That is a good question. Until last night, I had not actually seen my real numbers. And it was kind of scary. The reason I'm personally doing Etsy is because I can. I'm not relying on Etsy for an income totally. I enjoy doing Etsy. I've learned a lot from it. I think I've been able to share a lot of my experiences with you. So in that sense, I think it's worth it. Also, I've gotten to connect with a lot of people who have shopped with me, and I think it's a good way to serve the community you're in. I offer a lot of products that I like personally, and I'm willing to do this as a like long-term investment kind of, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm doing it. Also, yeah, and again, I'm kind of dabbling with the handmade items. So I think if my shop can get a lot more volume, I think that would make it more worthwhile. So technically I am in the negative, but it's because I have a lot of I've been able to use it to finance a lot of inventory. So pretty much all of the money I get from the Etsy shop goes back into more inventory for the shop. I've been able to expand my product offerings and try new things. I think the other benefit to me as a content creator is that I can buy a lot of stuff I need wholesale. I'm getting all of my fabric and all of my supplies 50% off that I'm using in videos, that I am using myself when I'm making things for the shop. I'm getting a lot of that stuff at a much lower price than the average consumer. So having my reseller license has had a real benefit to me as well. I've got Tara again. She has a response for Sarah J. Just start. I suggest to add a listing daily for the first month and then add a new listing often. Jen may say otherwise though, lol. I think that's good advice. I would say don't get ahead of your skis or feel overwhelmed that you have to add like a bunch of listings. I know it's a little overwhelming to take all the product photos for the marketing and to do all the listings. Do what you can and just do it little by little, and eventually you'll have a pretty good product offering in your shop. Can you use sew tights when doing in the hoop embroidery things? That is one of my main uses for the sew tights, so yes. And I have some videos over on the main channel where I demonstrate that. They have been great for embroidery. Okay, Debbie says, sew tights, they are great. I want to make myself name tags using sew tights instead of the pins poking holes in my shirt. That's a great suggestion. Lisa, sew tights is smart for partnering with you. I trust your integrity, so I really consider buying something you like and recommend. I appreciate that, Lisa. And yeah, they were very receptive. I've just gotten some very weird or bad vibes from interacting with some other companies. And that's the thing, like when I was talking to Sew Tights, I felt like we both had a mutual interest in genuine value to each other. And I have not felt that way with other companies. With other companies, I have felt like they were trying to extract the most value out of me while giving the least required of them. That's not a good feeling. That is not a business I want to have any sort of official, like a formal relationship with. So I'm really hoping this Sew Tights partnership can be a long-term thing. And that's the thing, I felt like that would be, sorry, my necklace is like really getting off kilter here. I felt like this would be a good partnership for me because this is already a company I have recommended and promoted just on my own. I purchased the products myself. So I felt like I would actually be a really great spokesperson for Sew Tights because I use the products and I've been loving them for years. I came up with the ad, like I said to them, I said, are there any specific, things you want me to touch on? And they're like, no, just, come up with something yourself. And I was like, okay. So my ad read was something I came up with totally, and I mean every word of it. So just know that this is a like genuine endorsement. I'm just happy to be compensated in some way for the endorsement. So that's pretty cool. Sorry, my throat is like really congested. Okay, so if you are joining late, I will recap. For my own Etsy shop, I've been operating the Etsy shop for about a little under 3 years, like seriously. My total Etsy shop sales, total gross numbers, $14,715. Total out-of-pocket expenses for the Etsy shop, $18,056. And so really when it all comes down to it, I am negative $3,341. So my expenses have exceeded my actual gross Etsy sales revenue. Here's the other thing though, because all of my inventory is considered an expense, another benefit is that it lowered my tax liability. So because all of the items I purchased are considered quote unquote cost of goods or COGS, that lowered how much income tax I owed to the IRS because because I paid for these items out of pocket. So, on average, I would say my Etsy shop is broken even about, just because I am sitting on a lot of inventory. So, as I sell more of the inventory, I'll recoup more of that money. But for me, my Etsy shop is about breaking even, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Plus, I think over time it will get better. The other thing is my online following has grown and my sales have grown pretty much year over year. So if that continues, I think it would still be a worthwhile thing to do. Plus, another benefit for me is the experience. I think it's made me a better businesswoman. I've been able to pass a lot of this information on to you. And I do feel like that, you know, if I can help benefit the maker community who struggles with business stuff, then I think that's a win, a W, definitely a clear W. And another thing that I think is great is that having a reseller license for me means that I can buy all of my sewing supplies and fabric for wholesale prices. So for me, that's been a pretty good thing. And I'm not disappointed with the Etsy progress at all, in my opinion. So if anybody has any more comments or questions, I'm probably not going to stay on too much longer. Again, I do want to share, let's see, that this live stream is sponsored by the Sewing Report Etsy shop, because this channel is not monetized. Oh wait, that's my listing. Sorry, I gotta go over here. This channel is not monetized. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That is required for monetizing a YouTube channel. So if you guys could help me out if you're here, I would really appreciate leaving a like on this live stream, leaving a comment, or participating in the chat, and subscribing to Sewing Report Live, where we'll be doing fun live sewing. We'll be chatting. You can come here and ask questions. And this is sort of a hangout. I try to go live most Sundays. Last week, I just had like a ton of editing to do. And I also was working on this whole like sponsored video. So I really wanted to make sure that was good. So I was kind of like stressed out about it. So I was like, you know, I really kind of wanted to make a good first impression since was our first like video together. But I think it came out really well. Plus, I thought that sponsorship was a natural fit because I was like going over the sewing tools that I like and use the most. And by the way, I had included Sew Tights before I knew they were sponsoring the video, so they did not ask me to do that, and they had no, Sew Tights had no involvement, zero involvement with the content itself, and those are the only types of sponsorships I will consider. I'm about to run out of water. I gotta eat some. By the way, my husband he has made pizza for like 8 days in a row. It's been a super great experience, but I think I'm gaining weight. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to eat some leftover pizza later tonight and see how that goes. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions about the Etsy shop, I'm excited because I got to mail these out tomorrow. It's also trash night over here. If you have any questions about vendors, sourcing, like shipping, anything like that, be happy to answer. Also, if you're watching this later on the replay, I would also, you know, if you have any questions and I can answer them, I certainly will. And if not, maybe someone else might be able to answer them. Again, just a quick disclaimer, I'm not any sort of Etsy expert or like financial or business. This is not like financial or business advice. I'm just someone who's been operating a small business and an Etsy shop. And I like doing it, and I like sharing some of this knowledge. Sarah J says, thank you for the insight. Thank you for watching, Sarah. And Denise says, have a small salad on the side and you'll be good. Oh, man, I wish, you know what? I do have some salad stuff. Maybe I should. Oh, and I need to place my grocery order tonight. I do have some salad stuff. Maybe I'll make something tonight. I don't know. I just don't really like eating salad. That's my whole thing. So, but if you have any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace, you know. Or do you object to this marriage? You know, I don't know. I'm just being silly now. But also, I want to know for everyone watching, are you surprised by my Etsy numbers? Like, did you think I was making like a lot of money? Like, what were you expecting me to say to this? Because yeah, the amount of money I've actually gotten to keep from this is not much. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Plus, you know, I've also gone through some trial and error where I bought inventory and like the item is not a great seller. So I've also learned some things on what sells and what doesn't, and what, you know, there are tough lessons to learn. Eventually things will sell, but, you know, some of this inventory just, you know, you kind of get to know what sells well and what's not really worth buying, again, in terms of inventory. Another thing that I would say is if you are operating an Etsy shop out of your home, and you don't want to like go to the post office a bunch or have to do like the scheduled package pickup, I try to ship items where the packages are small enough to fit in my mailbox. So when there's outgoing mail, I don't have to work, like, I try not to do items that are like super big. So I will only sell items that will fit into generally will fit into an envelope this size. I have had some unusually large orders, and in those cases I use the United States Postal Service flat fee boxes. There's a medium box that's pretty good. It's about $13 to ship. And in that case, you can schedule a pickup with your mail carrier the night before. And then, you can, I'll leave the packages in a bag by the door, just so that they're not sitting on the ground. But generally, I've tried to stick to supplies that are kind of small and easy to ship. The more bulky, oversized it is, the more your shipping is going to be, and the more difficult it is for you to be able to do all the the post office stuff. So I personally, and again, this item, if I sell this fits in a bubble mailer. It's pretty lightweight and it's not super big. So I just don't want to deal with the hassle of shipping large items. So that is why most of the items I have in my shop are very small. Those are the items that have worked the best for me. Okay. Oh, Tara, you just ate a salad. Okay, well, I'm just not I wish I liked salads. I know they're good for you. I just don't. I personally don't like salad that much. I'm sorry. I'm not much of a healthy eater. Sarah J, I was going to do embroidered freestanding lace jewelry, small to post. Well, yeah, here's the thing. Sarah, make sure your photos in the listing are great. Good photography seems to make a big difference. You'll want to show your jewelry on a model, a good, nice, clean, clear, up close photo of it. I see a lot of Etsy shops with really bad photography or very bad product samples, or say they're selling an item like this, but the fabric is not very universally appealing, and then the lighting is bad. So I would say spend some time learning about product photography and product marketing. All right, Denise says, yes, it was a surprise. I would have thought a little more profit, but now I'm aware of additional costs and extras. Yeah, and doing the bookkeeping is not cheap. Again, $320 a year for QuickBooks online stuff. I had to pay my accountant I think he charged $800 to do my taxes. So that's a lot of money. Great tips, thanks. Yes, and here's another thing I see people kind of debate about online is, can you be successful with Etsy without doing marketing or social media? I think it's possible, but I also don't understand why people don't at least want to try it out. It does not cost anything for you to use Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok. And I think some people will start an Etsy shop and just think the sales will roll in, not realizing that, again, if you are not doing any work on your part to market your products, you're probably going to have a pretty tough time with sales. I think the shops that are successful on Etsy, six-figure shops, I think there are probably very few of them that don't do social media or don't have a fairly successful marketing strategy. Now, you can buy Etsy ads. I have not done them. I don't know if they're worthwhile or not. I've heard both ways. But I do my own marketing, and clearly I've had better luck with my shop than if I didn't have any sort of online presence. So I would also say if you hate marketing and you hate social media and you want to do Etsy, I do think it's going to be fairly challenging for you if you're not willing to do any of those things. I think it's tough. All right, Denise says, as a customer, I'm put off by bad photos. It makes me wonder about the quality of the product. Me too. And even when I'm looking at sewing pattern digital products on Etsy, if the designer doesn't have really cute samples of the product, I'm a lot less likely to buy the pattern. We're all drawn in by cool samples of the product, pretty fabric, really nice photography. And I do think that makes a huge difference with any product. All right, Lisa says, hated taking photos of my aprons and it takes time to do the whole listing thing. Got faster as I went along, but never really liked it all. It is a lot of work. I'll spend an entire day photographing things, editing the photos, doing the little like Etsy video, and then doing the listings. It takes a long time. And also, when you have to do your like shipping stuff for each item, I have to know what size package the package will be and what the weight is in order for Etsy to accurately calculate the shipping cost to the customer. So when I'm listing an item, I kind of do like a mock shipment of it. So I have to make sure, that I know like what the package size will be, how much it will weigh with like the packing slip, with like any packaging I'm putting it in. So I kind of have to like pretend I'm shipping it out to a customer so I can get an accurate weight of it. And at this point, I'm fairly good with knowing what all of my items, weigh. I know that's kind of freaky. And with figuring out like what size package it will be in and that sort of thing. So there's a lot you have to know when you're filling out your listing, to make sure it's as accurate as possible. There's a lot involved with even creating the Etsy listing. So there's a lot to do. I've got my water shot on. You can see my water here. But yeah, if anyone has any last minute questions about the Etsy shop, let me know. I'd be happy to help. I'm gonna turn this over so I can put on the overhead. We're gonna put on the overhead cam here. Got camera 2. So you can see I've got my flathead magic pins here. I still really love these pins. They're so cool. So I've got all these packages I need to ship out. I was kind of working on like a product sample. This is something I'm considering selling. I need to tweak it a little bit. So this is not going to be like the final one, but I made these little super simple everyday pouches. By the way, I have a free tutorial and pattern for this if you'd like to make this pouch. I feel like this D-ring tab, I needed to like put this needs to be a little bit shorter. I feel like this is like flopping out too much, but this is just sort of like a prototype. I really love the fabric. I think this would sell well because this is my Rifle Paperco fabric. And then the inside is like a wipeable lining. So this is something I'm working on. I also want to make more purse scarves. But yeah, I think once I have these available in more colors, I have not sold any of these yet, to be completely honest. But I think once I have more of a selection, I think that will help me gain traction. So I just need to make a bunch more of these. And I have a bunch of other fabrics that I want to do them in. I haven't gotten around to making more yet, but that's something I'll be working on this week. I also made a few those Yarrow pouches I made a couple weeks ago. I need to list those in the Etsy shop. I took photos, but I haven't done the listing yet. But yeah, like this little D-ring tab, it bothers me because I feel like it's a little too floppy. I think it would have been better if it would have been like around here, and then this D-ring would be more secure. So I'm going to gift this pouch to someone because I don't, and that's the thing. If I'm selling this, I want the product photo to be accurate. So like, if this is the product photo and then what the customer gets is a little bit different, like that's not cool. So I'm going to gift this to someone and make another one. But this has kind of helped me come up with some tweaks I want to do with the products. So just sort of my whole like thought process and everything, in case anyone's like, curious about that kind of thing. What was I going to say? Oh, another thing is all of the product marketing photos I use, they do double duty for me because I can also post them on Instagram. I can use them in other ways. If I'm shooting video of them, I can use them in videos. So at least for me as a content creator, when I am shooting like photos of the stuff I'm selling, I at least have the benefit of being able to use all of that content for other purposes too. So that's why, like, if you're taking product photos anyways and you're trying to get really nice photos, why not do an Instagram and post all of the nice photos there too? or do process videos, have that be your Etsy video, and then also post that on like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. Just my opinion. All right. We got some more comments. Hello, Bablugas. Hello from Twitch. Yeah, we got a couple of Twitch folks here. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, it's hard to do the D-ring super close. And I have a small foot. I could have done it. I just kind of like, it's just one of those things where like I didn't think about it until it was done. And I was like, oh, I kind of don't like this. So I'm going to make another one. I also maybe want to have this be a set with a matching like wristlet with a like a little clasp on it. Like, like the D-ring swivel hooks. I might do that. So I'm not sure yet if I want to sell these by themselves or as like a set with a little wristlet. Kind of like how I made with my super simple everyday pouch hack. So I'm trying to figure out, I think I'll sell them as a set. So it'll come with the pouch with the little side tab with the D-ring, and then it'll also come with like a little wristlet keychain thing. So I think I might sell those as a set for like maybe I'm thinking like $49, something like that. So $45 to $49. I mean, like I think it has to be, it would have to be a fairly higher priced item from my shop. And the other thing is that, like, I know you might think it's high, but guys, I've been watching luxury YouTube as well, and people will drop $800 on a designer pouch that looks just like this. So you pricing them at $49 for some higher end customers is very cheap. So I would actually try to attract the higher end customer versus like the customer who's unwilling to pay $10. Like, I think you're just going to deal with a lot more issues. And again, I'm not saying that people, with lower budgets don't deserve nice things, but like, that's the thing. Like, it's also unfair to ask a maker to drop their price just so that someone can afford it. Like, if you're selling things and you're making it, you have to be able to make a living from it too. And unfortunately, not everyone is always going to be able to afford what you're selling. I have things in different price points. My scarves are fairly affordable. But I think we're at the point too where people are so afraid of like hurting other people's feelings or having them be like super accessible to every consumer. And from a business perspective, I just don't think that's very smart. Because if you're selling a quilt for $50 so that everyone can afford one, you're going to starve. Like, you're not going to make any money from it. And like, you have to be able to take care of yourself and your own bills and your own family. And I don't think it's wrong to need to do that. So not everyone might like that. That's just my opinion. But you really need to price your items at a level to where you feel good about what you're making. And if you don't feel good about what you're making, I would try to improve the products you're making, but also charge more for them. All right, I just noticed your t-shirt totally coordinates with your sewing space. Cute, thank you, Denise. All right, Bablugas, is a beginner able to do something like that, like this pouch? I have a full tutorial over on the Sewing Report main channel. I tried to make this very easy. It does involve working with zippers, but I have a lot of tips within the video for working with zippers. So I have a couple of videos, so definitely check it out. And you may, I think a confident beginner could do this. It does involve like interfacing and working with zippers and some hardware, but it's honestly like this is not like a super difficult project. So I tried to make my tutorial as beginner friendly as possible. All right, we've got Tara. Yes, Jen, I feel like my pricing is not cheap, but I have pulled in excellent customers. Exactly. If you're trying to price your items like bottom of the barrel so that everyone can afford them, I do think that might attract some customers you may not want. I'll just leave it at that. Again, I'm not trying to be like elitist or like gatekeepy, but like handmade items are a luxury item to begin with because we pay people real wages. You know what I mean? Like, so just my opinion. But if anyone else has any further questions, I'll leave it open for a few minutes if you're just joining in. Oh, we got a quilting one here. People have asked me to make quilts for them and that they would pay me. Materials alone are $150 to $200. So I say pay for the materials and I will make it for you as a gift. That's one thing. Quilting, I think, is making quilts, I think, is fairly hard to make a profit on because they're so time intensive. And I think the average person just has no idea how much stuff costs. So if you tell them that the fabric alone costs $200, like, they're going to get like Pikachu face. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, I thought that would be like a price, like a really expensive quilt. No, an expensive quilt is $10K. A cheap quilt is like $500. And if someone's spending a month making a quilt, paying them $200 is not at all within the ballpark of like reality there. So I just think a lot of people don't know how much stuff costs and don't understand how much time things take to make. Even lap quilts or table runners, I mean, they would take me like a week to do, you know? And imagine if I was only charging $100, that doesn't even cover like the cost of the fabric. That's just crazy, you know? Just is what it is. All right, guys. Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm going to sign off in a few minutes, but I would encourage you, if you've enjoyed this show, like and subscribe to Sewing Report Live. We're going to do a lot more shows like this. We'll either be doing live sewing or I'll be doing like a topic like this or about some other, news within the sewing community. I've done a few shows like that. I think people have really enjoyed them. They've gotten pretty decent views. So I've been pretty happy with that. We also sometimes we just kind of come here and have fun and chat, and I'll answer questions. But I hope everyone has a great Sunday. And if you are watching this on the replay, thank you as well. And you're welcome to continue to ask questions in the comments. This video will stay up and we'll be hanging out. Is next week, I think next week is Mother's Day. I'll have to figure that out because obviously I want to do something with my mom. I may do a live stream maybe on Saturday. Maybe we'll do a live stream on Saturday instead, so we can leave Mother's Day free so that y'all can hang out with your kids or with your own mothers. So maybe I'm pretty sure next week is Mother's Day. Let me double check. Let's see here. Okay, yes, Mother's Day is next week. Just an FYI, get something for your mom. If you have not already, just a reminder to everyone. So maybe we'll do a live stream next week on like Saturday instead, and then we'll keep Mother's Day free so that y'all can celebrate and appreciate everyone's mom. Favorite Mother's Day recipe? I don't know if I have one. I'm probably going to invite we're probably going to go out to eat. I'm going to be real with you. Something like that. But to all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day. We really appreciate you. Thank you for bringing us all into the world. And I'll see you guys again probably if you're watching this later, we'll probably be doing a live stream. I'm going to plan on Saturday. So maybe like Saturday afternoon, something like that. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. That is the full breakdown of my experience with Etsy, all of my financials, my numbers. Yes, I am currently in the negative because I'm sitting on thousands of dollars worth of inventory. But anyways, I will see you guys again in the next one. And I'm Jen with the Sewing Report. Remember, whatever you're doing, make it fun.